You are listening to the Global CTE podcast with your host, Sylvester Chisom.
Welcome, my friends, to another episode of the Global CTE podcast, where it is our desire to wrap a blanket of goodwill around the career tech education community. I highlight some of the best, the brightest, the people who are really doing the work, making things happen to gain that insight that we can bring back into the classroom to help prepare our students for success in the global marketplace. Today, we are totally in for a treat. I have an entrepreneur who's doing so many amazing things socially as well as in education. My man, Kuda Biza. Let me tell you about Kuda. Kuda is a Zimbabwean entrepreneur and the co-founder and CMO of None-Believable, a mission-based baked goods company that donates a meal for every bag of cookies sold. The company is backed by Tony Robbins, Idea Lab NY, and Lobe.nyc. He's also the author of the book, The Spear Method, 5 Simple Steps to Balance Success and Fulfillment. He's also the author of the This Is My Era 90-Day Planner, which helps you with time management and has also provided tens of thousands of school supplies to children in need in Zimbabwe. Kuda believes in being a force for good, and through his entrepreneurial ventures, he is working to solve the world's biggest problems, education and hunger. Since launching None-Believable, the company has provided hundreds of thousands of meals to people in need across America through partnerships with organizations like World Vision and NYC Relief. Now, if that's not enough, Kuda has also founded the Amani Hope Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit organization with a mission to empower underprivileged children in Africa by providing scholarships. The organization has provided scholarships to hundreds of students in Africa. When I tell you Kuda is truly a global social entrepreneur, change agent, doing the work, I can't wait to jump into this interview. Kuda, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, man. Sometimes when I hear people introduce me, I was like, who is this guy? And I remember it's me. And God has blessed me to be able to impact the world in a very positive light, and I can't do more in 2023.
I love it. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. I just love the fact that you are, you have such a spirit of thinking globally in all of your ventures and your endeavors, and putting other people, humanity, at the forefront of all these things. We're both in agreement, as you know, in terms of the education and how important that is to try to prepare the next generation. So, man, look, I want to hear from you. Coming from Zimbabwe, like, what's your origin story, man? How do you get here?
I came on a plane, like most people. But I guess to answer your question, when I was 7 years old, Zimbabwe was hit by a very severe drought. In fact, there's actually a New York Times article, front page, that says that Southern Africa has been hit by the worst drought of the century. I lived through that. The way I was able to survive through that drought was through donations from Americans, really. So organizations like World Vision and a few others were providing food relief to the people in Southern Africa. So people in Zimbabwe, South Africa, Mozambique, Zambia, Botswana, Namibia, we were all going through this drought. And my father was actually one of the leaders of the food relief efforts in Zimbabwe. So he would go out into the villages, and he would come back home and tell me what they would see as they were donating all of this food. He would come back with one of two stories. One amazing story of like, oh my God, we got there on time, we were able to save a village. Or the very sad story that, hey, we got there a day late, an 8-year-old grandma passed away the night before because she didn't have any food. So I started asking my dad, like, who are these people who are providing the food that you're going out and donating? And that's when he told me, it's like, oh, it's a group of American entrepreneurs who are donating to nonprofit organizations like World Vision, and through those donations, they're able to provide food to us. So because, I was like, oh my God, what they're doing is really cool. Like, these entrepreneurs, they're making money in their own business, whatever it is, but they're using the profits to impact lives, I want to do that, right? Because when you're young, you're curious, and you have these ambitions of things that you want to do. So for me, it's like, hey, I want to go to America. I want to build a business similar to these business people. But more importantly, I want to give back, because I know what it's like to receive. So for me, it was like, you know what? I need to get to that point in my life where I'm using my talents, knowledge, and skills to give back. So that was kind of like the initial seed of me wanting to come to America. However, coming to America itself was a whole nother story, because by the time I graduated high school, Zimbabwe was going through what's called hyperinflation. So in America, we complain when we're going through inflation, 3%, 5%, 10%, right? In Zimbabwe, we're going through inflation of 2 million%.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I was expecting for you to say like 35 or 40, like, and you said 2 million. Oh my God.
Yeah, you should actually look it up. It got so bad that the highest denominator in our currency was a $20 note. At its height, the highest denominator was 100 trillion.
Wow.
You would have $100 trillion in your pocket because the currency was so bad. And this is after they'd taken away multiple zeros because we couldn't enter it into the computer system anymore.
Yeah.
So this was me graduating high school. I'm getting into this environment where there's over 95% unemployment rate. There's hyperinflation. I still have my dream of wanting to come to America, but college education is not cheap, right? Even people in America struggle to pay for college education unless if you get financial aid. But if you're an international student, your options are limited in terms of financial aid you can receive. But to cut a long story short, it took me 2 years from the time I graduated high school to when I finally got a visa and a scholarship, and I came to America. And when I came to America, my parents could only give me $40. Remember, we're going through hyperinflation.
Yeah.
And I landed at Miami International Airport with $40 in my pocket, a dream in the suitcase of becoming this successful entrepreneur that gives back.
I love it, man. That's an amazing story. I have so many questions from what you just shared. Talk to me about, I believe like resilience is a key determining factor in success. Can you talk to me about maybe some of the resilience that you built up, like experiencing that time coming up in Zimbabwe? I'm just curious.
So here's the thing. I gave a TEDx talk, where I talk about growth comes outside of your comfort zone, right?
Yes.
If you want to grow, if you want to achieve any goal of significance, it's going to push you outside of your comfort zone. So that's where the resilience comes in, right? Because when you're outside of your comfort zone, your brain is naturally going to tell you, like, dude, go back to your comfort zone. Go back to what we know. Because your brain's job, believe it or not, is not for you to thrive. Its job is just for you to survive. Right. So if you just want to, live, you just wake up and whatever life gives you and you survive, you don't need any resilience. But if you want to thrive, if you want to achieve those big, hairy, audacious goals that you set, then you're going to need to be able to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. So what does that mean? So when I graduated high school, I wasn't the only one who wanted to come to America. I can tell you easily 20 plus classmates that shared the same dream. Because remember, we were in a country going through an economic crisis. Mm-hmm. However, I was one of the few that had the resilience and the tenacity to go through what it took in order for me to achieve my dream. So what does that mean? When we started the journey of applying for schools, we all quickly realized that we needed a resource, i.e. internet, in order for us to apply. We didn't have internet at home. We didn't have cell phones or anything like that personally. So a lot of my friends were like, you know what? We're just going to give up. We're just going to stay in Zimbabwe. And this whole American dream, it's not meant for us. It's meant for other people. But then in my mind, I was like, you know what? In life, it's not about the resources, or in this case, the lack thereof. It's being resourceful, right? So one of the things about resilience is you need to figure out how to be resourceful if you don't have the resources you need to get to where you are. Yeah. So what I did in that moment is I went to an internet cafe. So an internet cafe is basically a place where you go, you pay for the internet, you use it, and you leave. So it's like a phone shop or whatever. So I went to the owner of the company and I said to the guy, listen, if I come to you asking for a job, you're probably going to tell me there are no jobs, because 95% unemployment rate, right? So everybody doesn't have a job pretty much. So I knew that wasn't a startup. But I have an opportunity that I want to share with you. The opportunity I want to share with you is this. Right now, you open up your internet cafe from 6 a.m. and you close at 6 p.m. I think you're missing out on a lot of money. I want to be the guy who works your night shift. So let's open it up from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. I'll work for a week for free to test this concept out, to eliminate your risk. And then if we see that, okay, people are actually coming, we're actually making money, then you can pay me. So we did it for a week. And a week later, we're looking at the results. The 5 hours that I worked, we were making more money than the 12 hours that they were open before. So it became a no-brainer to him that, hey, we need to be open from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. because everybody's leaving work. We're the only game in town. So I basically was resourceful enough to create an opportunity for myself, because at 11 p.m. when I would kick everybody out and lock the doors, I would sleep inside the internet cafe, use the internet from 11 p.m. to 6 in the morning when the other shift comes. So I basically created 7 hours of free internet. Man. Remember, that was the resource that I needed. But it took a certain level of resilience for me to say, like, hey, I'm willing to sleep on a chair for 7 hours using the internet than sleep in my bed at home. My friends weren't willing to do that. And that's the differentiator of me being here and having accomplished the things that I've accomplished, and then still being in Zimbabwe and going through what's happening in Zimbabwe right now.
Wow. Okay. That's the only word I have for that. Like, Kuda, you are unstoppable, man. Like, as we're having this interview today, like, and this is 17, 18, 19-year-old version of
17.
17. And this is the framework you're using to think. I'll allude to something that I know will come up later. One of my favorite things I ever saw from a guy named Tony Robbins, he says, lacking resources is not your problem. It's resourcefulness. Right? And it's like, just the way you started out, you took what you had and you created an opportunity for yourself by also serving others in that. Man, that's super powerful. So you make the move and you end up coming to America in Miami. What college, or like, where did you go to school when you came here?
Yeah. So I went to a school.
What happened when you get to America?
Yeah, so I went to a school called Lynn University. And what's interesting is that it was one of the few schools I found that was in South Florida. I wanted to go to a place where they had really good weather, but had a dual program in aviation and business, because my passion was to fly planes. But I also knew that, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur. Remember my 7-year-old dream, right? So I wanted to do a program where I could do both. So Lynn had a program where you could be part of their aviation program as well as be part of the business school and double major. So I ended up going there, and it's in sunny Boca Raton.
I love it. So cool. I'm just curious. So, like, going back to, you said you came to America with only like $40, with probably not as many friends, family connections here in America, knowing no one. What advice would you share with other international students who are coming to America, and like maybe they're feeling like overwhelmed by that experience?
Yeah, what I would tell them is that, listen, it's really your future it lies in your hands, right? And it also lies in the stories you tell yourself. So if you tell yourself a story that's empowering, you're going to create an empowering future. But if you tell yourself a not so pleasant story, you know, I guess you know where to go, right? But the key thing, though, to realize is that it all comes down to mindset.
Yes.
Because I could have looked at my opportunities and looked at what I lacked, right? I don't have this, I don't have that. You know, I went to a private school, so most of the kids had cars. I didn't have a car. Most of the kids had a laptop. I didn't have a laptop. Most of the kids, in fact, all of the kids had cell phones. I didn't even have a cell phone, right? I had $40. I had to debate if I should go buy toothpaste or save up the money to go buy books and stuff.
So you're trying to buy books, and you're touching on gratitude. I'm hearing right, and you and I talked about this before the call. The importance of gratitude. Talk to me about your morning routine. I think it was like gratitude in 5 or something.
Morning, it's called Gratitude in 5, where I literally spend 5 minutes writing down 5 things that I'm grateful for. That's how I start my day. And the reason why I do that is because it enables me to focus on the good things happening in my life versus focusing on the bad things or what my brain could depict as bad. Because your experience of life depends on what you're focused on, right? Because where your focus is, that's where the energy goes. So if you're focused on the good things happening in your life, you're going to be happy, you're going to be in a good mood, and you're going to attack situations very differently than someone who's like, oh my God, I only have $40, I don't have friends, I don't know anybody. When you get into the cafeteria, all you can simply do is just say hello to the next person, and boom, you have a friend, right?
Yeah.
But it only just took you just being in a different frame of mind and practicing one small habit to change your destiny.
No, that's so important, man. That's such a powerful message. Operating from a place of gratitude. I do something very similar when I wake in the morning. I start my day like that, but I start with just saying, what are 3 things I'm grateful for, or 3 people I'm grateful for? And it really re-engineers your mind to approach the day with gratitude, appreciation, and seeing the world through a lens of opportunity, which I love how you approach that. So I'm picking up resilience, gratitude, like this the Kuda operating system here. What I'm trying to do is unpack something here to say, like, for all our teachers, educators listening, like, I'll see how you answer this.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say, what would be in the curriculum to create more Kudas?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think the curriculum to create more kudas is quite simple. I think we've already spoken a couple of those, right? Resilience and gratitude.
Yeah.
I also think it's action, right? One of the key things that I've been able to do that has rewarded me tremendously is by being an action taker, right? So, for example, some people could have come up with the idea to go to the internet cafe, but they would just maybe not take action, right? For one reason or the other. So, one of the things I like to tell students when I go and speak at colleges and high schools is that you have to feed your faith and starve your fear, because you're always going to have both at any moment in time, right? There's going to be that fear that's going to be like, if I do this, is it going to work? Blah, blah, blah. And then there's that faith that you can just say, like, you know what? I'm just going to take the leap. I'm just going to do it, and we'll see what happens.
Feed your faith, starve your fears. Feed your faith, starve your fears. I like that. I feel like that leads you to success. That leads to progress, upward mobility, achieving goals. Now, I'm curious though, like you did this, right? You're embodying this philosophy. You live this. You come to America with not a lot. You start to find yourself having some success. How do you not get stagnant, right? how do you continue to push forward? Like I know a lot of people struggle with that. Like they reach a goal and then they may kind of plateau. How do you push forward beyond that?
It's okay for you to celebrate, pat yourself on the back, but do it only for a moment, and then move on to the next thing. Because if you're always looking ahead, you always realize that, hey, you don't have everything, you don't have all the tools to get to that next level. So you should always be tapping into that sense of humility, because that is what will enable you to raise your hand and ask questions, reach out for help, and also even realize how blessed you are, and then also help other people. And then the more you do that, you're going to just see that there's a compounding effect that just occurs in your life, which then just propels you to a whole nother level.
I love it, man. And now you just mentioned something I want to piggyback on. I know you speak at schools all over the world, you know, connecting with educators all over the world. And one of the things as I was doing my research, you just spoke to thinking ahead to the future. I saw your TED talk talking about the company of the future as it relates to that. What are some key elements when you think of the company of the future, and how can our educators maybe prepare students to work there?
Yeah, for me, I think it's simple. Obviously, technology is going to be a key element for the company of the future. You look at what's happening with chat, GPT, AI, and all that stuff. But all of that is a given, right? And people are going to move on with technology as technology gets more advanced and more, democratized across the world. But the key differentiator, I think, that's going to give businesses and brands a heartbeat that, other businesses don't have, is being purpose driven. You look into the numbers right now, more and more customers, especially the millennials and these younger generations, they're looking to connect with brands and companies that serve a purpose much bigger than profit. Gone are the days where you just create a business to make money.
Yes.
Now consumers are looking for, like, okay, you create this amazing product, right? It could be this amazing coffee, but what else do you do? Right? Because consumers have realized that in their wallet, they have the ability to vote every single day and connect with brands that they believe in, right? So it's easy nowadays to cancel a brand than before, right? Because before you didn't have social media and all these vehicles where consumers had the power. Mm-hmm. But now more power lies with consumers, where if there's a consumer sentiment about something and they push it out, your business could be shut tomorrow just by the strengths consumers have right now. So being purpose driven not only enables you to connect heart to heart, your brand with the consumer, but it also enables you to have a bigger reason why you exist. Because if you think about the word purpose, right? That word, if you look up the definition, it says purpose is the reason why something exists.
Purpose is the reason why something exists. I am totally in alignment with you on that. You make me think about how purpose for something is the reason for something to exist. Could be for the company, could be for the nonprofit, but also for the individual. And I know your story embodies all of those things, but I really want to go to the non-believable part.
Give me some of this story. I want to hear about this non-believable, because it totally ties into what you said, what students and the companies of the future caring about, giving back and all of that. So talk to me about non-believable.
Yeah, so non-believable, the story is actually quite interesting. So just to give you background, we're talking about my college journey. So when I graduated college, I went and I worked in a fairly large Fortune 500 company. And my role within that entity when I started working there was different. My role was to create new businesses. So literally to take ideas on an app and turn them into businesses. That was my role. So I did that for over a decade within this within this organization. And then what ended up happening is that I was climbing the corporate ladder, and I never went back home. I never went back to Zimbabwe to see my parents. I never went back home to Zimbabwe to see my siblings. And all of a sudden, I get a call at 3 a.m, and my sister had passed away. She had been beaten by a dog with rabies. And the thing with rabies is that if it's not treated within like a 24-hour period, that's it. So that's what happened. She got beaten today, 2-3 days later, she's gone. And as my sister is telling me that, hey, our sister just died, for me, it kind of like became this thing like, wow, like I really need to take a step back. Success is good, but I also need to focus on fulfillment. I need to think about the things that fulfill me, like my family, like, giving back and all that stuff. But in the corporate world, I was just focused on, building that next multi-million-dollar business, getting that promotion, getting that bonus. And I never really took time to, focus on the things that give me fulfillment because I was just chasing success, which actually led me to write a book called The Spear Method.
Yes.
5 simple steps to balance success and fulfillment. And as I was writing that book, it became apparent to me that, hey, I needed to leave corporate America and I needed to work on a purpose-driven brand. And by fate, literally by fate, I'm going through all of this by myself. I just wrote this book. I get a call, and the call is like, hey, there's a gentleman who has an idea to launch a purpose-driven company. We know your track record and the things that you've done launching these multi-million-dollar businesses in corporate America. Okay. We think you're the right partner to come in and help us take this idea and turn it into a business.
Man, Kuda, I love how they found you because you were the right person who walking in your purpose actively, continuously, which is something like all of our educators, all of our listeners should really grab a hold to. When we find that purpose, we find fulfillment there, like you said, and for you, it is that creating businesses that have that social piece, that heart to it. There's so much info on that non-believable when I was doing my research around like Tony Robbins and how he found out about it and the connection between you and Tony Robbins. Share a little insights on that for me if you can.
Where did like Tony connect with the nuns? Like, you could talk to me about that part.
Sure. So what happened was that Tony was on his way to San Francisco, and he read about a group of nuns that were being evicted. So it was in the newspaper. So he went to their mission to find out what was going on, and he decided to help them. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And through that journey of him helping them, he learned that the nuns were baking cookies and using the money that they were getting from selling to fund a soup kitchen where they were feeding about 400 people a day. But the nuns, they weren't like trying to go to retail or make it big in any significant way. And Tony, being Tony, was like, hey, can we take inspiration from the nuns and actually build a brand that, takes the inspiration from what the nuns are doing, but also, fight hunger in a much bigger way. So that's how it came about. And obviously the name Unbelievable is really just our way of paying homage to the nuns that inspired the idea.
I love it. Hey, in educate, you said it about the companies of the future need to be good citizens, right? And as it relates to our educators preparing students for success to work at those companies, like the younger generation, like they're super like in tune and tapped into like wanting to do good now. So how can help use like social entrepreneurship as a teaching tool, find these situations or supporting a homeless shelter or something with pets, or I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
I think it's super powerful in two ways. So the first way is, what is entrepreneurship? In its simplest form, if you break it down, entrepreneurship is where you're basically telling them like, hey, let's go into the marketplace, identify problems, and let's come up with a solution for it. So you're basically teaching identify problems and let's come up with a solution for it. So you're basically teaching them problem solving skills. But now when you add the social element to it, you go even a step further, which is, hey, our entrepreneurial venture should not just be for us to make money. Let's make the world a better place with it, which is where the impact comes in. Because I'm a strong believer that entrepreneurs, we see problems and we solve them. Mm-hmm. Governments alone can't do it. Non-profits by themselves can't do it. But it takes that unique problem-solving ability that entrepreneurs have to be able to solve all the many problems that we face as mankind, right? So in my personal opinion, I think this should be a curriculum that should be taught starting at a very young age. I would even start when kids are like 12 years old, right? Because by the time they graduate when they're 18, oh, by the way, here's a way where we can make impact. Imagine the type of skilled person that's going to be entering the marketplace when they graduate college, or imagine the ideas that they could generate and even start businesses on their own, right? So in my opinion, I think it's super important for them not thinking about the things that they don't normally think about. Is like, okay, where do we get the raw materials? How do we turn them into a product? How do we come up with our pricing? How, what's the profit? And from that percentage of the profits, how can we make an impact? So, experience is the best teacher, in my opinion. So the quicker you can teach kids and give them that experience to learn how to be social entrepreneurs, the better social entrepreneurs we're going to get down the road later. You look at sports, a lot of the world-class athletes that we see today, they started playing when they were young, right? LeBron James didn't just start playing a year before he was drafted, right? He started when he was a kid. So if we're gonna create, a future where we have high quality, best class entrepreneurs, we have to start teaching them the real, thing at a very young age. So that's my perception around that. And with my son, he's 1 right now. I intend to touch really teaching him how to be an entrepreneur as soon as he's like maybe 5 or 6, so that by the time
it will make a difference.
Yeah,
it will make a difference. And when you hear, like, I like to go to the origin stories on people, companies, and things, and you look at people, say like I take a big name like a Warren Buffett. I believe I read something that said he made his first he bought his first stocks when he was 12. Like that makes a difference with what you said, starting earlier, thinking critically about problems, so that when our students do graduate from high school, go on to college, or whatever is next for them in life, they have that skill, that problem-solving skill, that durable skill of knowing how to think critically about something and finding solutions, taking ownership over that. And that works whether they become social entrepreneurs, or work in some company. A company is going to get someone who is really a thinker as it relates to problems. Now, I know one of
so can I add something to it?
Keep going. Talk to me.
I didn't tell you is that I started my first business when I was 9 years old.
What was it?
It was a window cleaning business
in Zimbabwe.
And the way it started, the way it started was, there was an ice cream truck coming down my street. I went to my mom to ask her for money for ice cream. She said no. And I'm like, how can one person control my ice cream destiny? Like, she just decided that I'm not going to have an ice cream. I'm not going to have an ice cream. And they say that necessity is the mother of invention. All of a sudden, I started realizing that my neighbor's windows were dirty. So I went over to my neighbor and asked her if I could clean her windows. And she said, yeah. So for $5, I cleaned the windows. and then just started going out, every house across the neighborhood and started a small little enterprise cleaning windows over the summers. But I'm a firm believer that experience laid the foundation to who I am today, an entrepreneur, because it's now in my DNA. I've been an entrepreneur most of my life because I started when I was 9.
Talk to me about the reward. So the next time that ice cream truck came down the street, what happened after you had a pocket full of money?
So the day before, I ran into the house to ask my mom for money. The next day, I ran into my house to take my wallet and bought it with my own money. I was a big boy now. And, it changed my life ever since, because I realized that entrepreneurship is empowering, right? Because I could have sat outside, be sad, and said, like, you know what? My mom didn't give me any ice cream money, and, just kind of like live off that energy. But I decided, no, I'm going to take control into my own hands. I have the ability to create my own future reality. And that's what I did. And that's what entrepreneurs do. Look at what all the entrepreneurs have done. They've looked at something and said, like, we're going to use our ability to create a new reality. And they've done it. And along the way, they've made the world a better place. They've made things more convenient for us, but also they've made money along the way, which is great as well.
I'm trying to think where to go next with this, because something you keep pulling out, it's how you approach something, right? It's you mentioned one part of it, getting over the fear. And I would imagine you're probably like me, where you probably have a greater fear of not trying something versus the fear of failure to something. So with that, I know one of your popular keynotes in the education space is around curiosity. I think it was called The Curiosity Awaken the Lion. So talk to me about the importance of curiosity to success, and like, can we teach? Give me something tactical. How can we try to teach curiosity?
So for me, I like to pursue greatness, yes, rather than to be stuck in fear.
That was great. Listen, overcome the fear. Kuda, thank you so much for your time. Very inspiring episode. If people want to connect with you, tell them where to go. How can they connect with you?
Kuda Biza, KUDABIZA, on all social media platforms: Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. Or you can shoot me an email, kuda@kudabiza.com.
Definitely. If you're looking for a great keynote speaker, someone to bring into your school or your organization, make sure you tap in with Kuda. You heard the inspiration here. It only gets better.
Thank you for listening to the Global CTE podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to be the first to know about future episodes.